Week 5 of the 2022 Battlebots World Championship 7. Regular season is now in the books. We've had 7 more fights, including an absolute barn burner yet again from Fusion, taking on Witch Doctor this time. We also saw our very first ever all-alternate meeting between Double Tap and Dumba, and a very, very interesting main event. I was wondering when all the controversy would start kicking in this season. Well, it looks like it has here at Week 5. We're talking about all of that, plus 4 more other fights here at the Combot Collective, so stay tuned. Watch out.
To get in the flip on Combot. We're going to go the way. Oh my God! That's going to hurt. Grab the milk, Kenny.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know about the 2022 Battlebots World Championship 7 season. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown, aka Query to 300th, former writer at Third Law Sports and current runner of King of Draft, current Battlebots subreddit moderator, and today... Probably don't want those on screen today. Kind of awkward. But yes, today, Week 5 of Battlebots, Episode 5 of the regular season this year for World Championship 7. It was an interesting one. This was our first episode consisting of solely Round 2 matchups of the regular season. That's right, we have seen all 50 main regular season robots fight at least once as we approach the halfway point of the regular season here. And of course, we're also now going to be starting to see some of these alternates, some of these one-off robots having a televised appearance as well. It was super exciting to see Dumba and Double Tap fight earlier than Battlebots champions, because I was really worried that we weren't going to see a lot of these robots until Battlebots champions, machines like Slammo, Rusty, Double Tap, Dumba. But here we are, we're seeing them here. Other exciting matchups in this episode, a bunch of main event level meetings such as Sawblades versus Lockjaw. Very interesting setup for Lockjaw. We'll talk about it here in a second. And of course that main event, Riptide versus Madcatter. We'll have a ton to talk about with that here in just a moment. But we won't waste too much time here. We'll talk about that first fight, a meeting between Minotaur and FreeShipping. A bit of RoboGames history there in a second. But as always, we are sponsored by robotsruinmylife.com. They are the merchandise and exposure provider for numerous robot combat teams in the United States, mainly around the East Coast. Battlebots competitors such as Ripperoni, who we're going to be seeing next week, Starchild and Shreddit Bro are all represented by robotsruinmylife.com. Their merchandise is all over their store, along with NHRL robots such as the original 3-pound Shreddit Bro, Blackbird, Wake and Bake, who we're going to be giving away a shirt for here in the next coming week. They are all also on robotsruinmylife.com, so check out that website if you are looking for Robot Combat merch, or if you are a Robot Combat team looking for a merchandise partner. robotsruinmylife.com specializes in t-shirts, poker chips, buttons, stickers, prints, anything a Robot Combat fan could ask for, they take care of it. And of course, robotsruinmylife.com, also the sponsor for our TCC regular season giveaways that we've been doing so far this year. Of course, we did our Duck Hexbug giveaway. That went on for about 2 weeks. We're still looking for people to sign up for the giveaway for this Robots Ruin My Life tote bag, which contains Omega Team stickers, Omega Team poker chips, TCC stickers. It's all filled up in this bag, but you got to sign up for it. The description is in the link below. We're going to be extending that giveaway for 1 more week. And then next week, like I said, it's going to be the Wake and Bake t-shirt with some TCC stickers, some Robots Ruin My Life stickers mixed in there as well. Stay tuned for that. But now, no more wasting time. You heard from our sponsors. We hope you check out that giveaway. Let's talk about Episode 5 of Battlebots World Championship 7. Week 5 would kick off with a thrilling opening fight teaming with RoboGames history. Team Special Delivery and Ribots have met in the RoboGames 220-pound heavyweight division 4 times prior, with Original Sin and Toro Maximus, with Gary Jin's Original Sin taking the 2010 and 2018 meetings, while Toro would take the 2009 and 2015 meetings, with the latter of those two being a championship fight. This is a rubber match taken to a new level here at Battlebots, as moving on to the configurations and preparations here, not too much change from round 1 with both of these machines. FreeShipping now running the forks up front instead of those original Sin style wedges, while Minotaur enters with a slightly lighter set of front wedges, but really not that significant of a change, I would say. Team Ribot and Marco Meggiolaro were looking to use their compact size to their advantage, while Gary Jin said that he wanted to focus on being the more aggressive of the two spinners. Everyone knows Daniel Freitas is an incredibly aggressive driver. It's hard to out-aggression him. But FreeShipping would kick off the fight with a surprising box rush, but failed to really capitalize on the impact of this box rush, as shortly after Minotaur followed with its own first strike, which would take off FreeShipping's left front fork, and the weapon itself would follow along around 30 seconds later. But FreeShipping always has been about the drive and aggression behind Gary Jin, something definitely exhibited here, as FreeShipping still used a lot of control and power in the opening 60 seconds despite these damages. But all offense in the following 2 minutes would be 100% Minotaur, as Daniel Freitas would not give FreeShipping any room at all, using both the hazards and its vicious drum to secure a knockout victory on the incredibly sturdy FreeShipping in 2 minutes and 1 second. I was surprised to see FreeShipping get knocked out, and even more surprised to see it somehow lose only one wheel amidst this entire exchange. Team Ribot wins the Game 5 rubber match between these two storied RoboGames teams, real legends of the sport, as Minotaur moves on to a second half of its regular season featuring Combot and Witch Doctor. Minotaur's a likely playoff lock at 2-0, but as for FreeShipping at 1-1, I am still very impressed with the power of that little spinner when it manages these clean impacts like we saw at the start of the fight, and of course the aggression behind Gary Jin in the first half of the year really stands out. I feel like it was a lot more aggression than we saw in its past 2 seasons it competed. FreeShipping now stares down the barrel of Hydra and Big Dill, and if it can beat Big Dill and seriously put up a fight in this 2019 rematch versus Hydra, I think it would be safe to seed FreeShipping in that number 20 to number 30 seed area. The next match was a battle between two machines, which we were shocked to see 0-1 and 1-0 respectively, talking about Ribot versus Claw Viper. Washington's Claw Viper, fresh off spoiling Ominous's United States debut, showed up looking exactly like it did for that round 1 fight, dummy latch and all, while Ribot, much the same here, boasting a 35-pound vertical spinner and 2 wedgelets as it did during its loss to Witch Doctor in the season opener. Both drivers entering this fight had a very similar strategy, knowing that any sort of momentum from either team moving forward could easily decide the fight, so both teams had to be very quick and very aggressive with their drive and weaponry. But talking about quick and aggressive, boy, Claw Viper will be all up in Ribot's face with a box rush before Chris Rhodes could even finish his opening signature phrase. This offensive opening push would lead Claw Viper to successfully deliver a slamming suplex to Ribot in the opening 20 seconds, but after the suplex, Ribot would answer back nearly immediately with a strike to the rear of Claw Viper, its only significant strike of the entire bout, and a strike which would end up doing more damage to Ribot than Claw Viper, as after this vertical spinner strike, Ribot would lose drive in its left front wheel. After a few slams to the walls in the middle of the match, things got a bit stagnant. Claw Viper would quit being aggressive for a moment, sitting back while Ribot meandered around. But in the second half of the fight, things would pick up, going full tilt with Claw Viper doing suplexes and slams to Ribot, eventually breaking the 2021 number 2 seed's weapon to the surprise of all of us. And when the fight was all said and done, Claw Viper had successfully managed 4 suplexes, including one in the final 10 seconds, as the Washington State Western Allied Robotics competitor would get yet another upset, massive win against a much higher class vertical spinner robot. You know, there is no doubt in my mind that the story of this young season so far is the amazing run Claw Viper has already had. The robot has unprecedented speed and control with the magnet power quadruple from 2021, and this new version of Claw Viper in fact really reminds me of Storm 2 from back at its peak in Robot Wars Series 7. I think the driving mid-fight was questionable, but otherwise it was a perfect fight for Michalski and Claw Viper. 2-0 and looking to be a playoff lock with Overhaul up next, and Hypershock in round 4 suddenly not looking as open and shut as we all originally thought. Ribot, meanwhile, is in a very tough spot. Really not sure why we haven't seen the undercutter in either of these last 2 meetings. In my opinion, it is the better of its 2 weapon attachments. The 2021 Giant Nut favorite is now 0-2 at the season's halfway point and absolutely needs to defeat the 2 former All-Stars in Jackpot and Scorpius to have any hopes of a playoff berth. But now from Ribot and WPI, we now go to MIT, talking about a different Cambridge college here, discussing the 1-0 Sawblaze facing the also 1-0 Lockjaw, who recently broke a career-worst 4-loss streak. No history between these two teams at all, but hey, maybe a little bit of a callback to the 2015 Battlebots Overhaul vs. Lockjaw saga? Jameson Go was on that team, but he really wasn't involved in the drama. But now, talking about this match, Lockjaw shows up to round 2 with a very shocking setup. 0 wedges or plows at all, and what I believe is a first for Lockjaw in the Reboot era, as instead Mutant Robots has chosen to put this way into top armor and the addition of their mini-bot, Screwjob, the rotary lifter. Donald Hudson's strategy was to take that vertical spinner disc on Lockjaw and repeatedly throw it directly into the front of Sawblaze, who enters completely unchanged from its round 1 win versus Hypershock. Now, predictably, with a setup like we see on Lockjaw, much like Death Roll in the past, there was a lot of bouncing around from the veteran robot early on, which meant we saw tons of control from Sawblaze, who flipped Lockjaw very early in the fight and kept it there, rendering all that added top armor completely useless, as with his newfound exposure, Sawblaze would successfully lay down 4 Hammerstraw strikes in the opening minute, 3 to Lockjaw and 1 to Screwjaw, but Sawblaze's blade would surprisingly break just a minute into the fight. A rare situation for Sawblaze, but thankfully the control of Jameson Go and the damage already done to Lockjaw meant this fight was pretty much already nearly decided, as Sawblaze's tour of the arena, even without its weapon, would conclude with Lockjaw getting finessed into the arena screw pod by the blue square, high centering Lockjaw for a finesse KO at 236, none of those wheels touching the floor. It was a really good positioning here by Sawblaze at the end of the fight. And you know, in 2021, Donald Hudson would appear on Sam Elliott 64's RoboCast podcast and went on for quite a bit about the benefits to the chambered wheels on Lockjaw, and in fact, all of the Mutant Robots machines. They've all had these chambered wheels. One of the benefits which Donald Hudson really nailed down on was the fact that these chambered wheels are supposed to get Lockjaw out of a bunch of unique situations where other robots may be caught on the ground, caught in certain areas, high-centered, but it really didn't seem like that would be the case for Lockjaw here. Good news though for Lockjaw, it is still 1-1, and it didn't smoke at all during this fight, impressively enough. The 4-wheel drive vertical spinner will challenge Glitch and Mad Catter in its second half of the season, and if Glitch's glitches persist, Donald Hudson may still have a playoff hope. On Sawblaze's side of things, at 2-0, it is a near lock for the top 32, and a near perfect performance here versus Lockjaw despite the broken flamethrower. Sawblaze now prepares for its absolute dream match versus Scorpius around 3, but it cannot look too far ahead here. It does have Hydra in round 4. That is going to be a big main event level matchup. Moving on to our midway major now, it is a first time meeting between two very popular teams who did share an event during NHRL's May New Designs competition in 2022, but the pair never shared an arena during that event. It is Huge versus Blip, with Huge 1-0 after its massive win versus Shatter, while Blip sits at 0-1 following its respectable loss to Endgame during week 2. Blip entered this fight with an anti-Huge setup called the Zorro setup, which had extra armor covering Blip's top half, while the Flipper was armed with a pair of what Aaron Hill called the Fingers, a set of front rails with upwards pointing spikes designed to reach Huge's spokes. Huge, meanwhile, looked just like its traditional self, back to using the HDPE wheels for this one, along with that big-time 36-inch asymmetrical blade. Huge Captain Jonathan Schultz knew Blip would be desperate and dangerous given its 0-1 first round, as Huge intended to survive flips and deliver offense, while Aaron Hill just knew he had to be a yappy chihuahua whilst fighting such a big robot. Just keep being annoying, get to the sides of Huge, and just do as much offense as they can to win the judges over. This fight was quite an interesting one to cover here. Minute 1 of this fight was mostly in favor of Blip, who would go 5 for 9 on successful flip attempts to Huge before the big-time spinner would land a perfect strike to Blip, lodging its blade directly into the hinge of Blip's flipping arm near the fight's 1-minute mark, as from here Huge would attempt to take the lodged Blip into the upper deck screws, but the plodding beast was too big and too slow to do such a thing, resulting in a fight stoppage and an unstick. After a commercial break, the two crew bots were able to split the two, but upon resumption of the fight, Blip had no flip and Huge would go on to tee off on the blue flipper with 1 minute and 40 seconds to go. Huge would deliver strikes from all directions to the still fast and aggressive Blip, even ripping one of those flipper fingers clean off during the final minute as time would go up, leading to this fight being a judge's decision where Huge would end up being our unanimous winner. This was a very interesting scene here. I am incredibly curious to know who would have won this fight if Blip and Huge were not able to be unstuck. I feel like up to that point, Blip was in control with some impressive flips on the big bots, but Huge's impact was the one that stopped everything for Blip. So regardless, we did get all 3 minutes, and I do feel bad for Aaron Hill and Blip. It dominated aggression and control, and at an event like, say, RoboGames, we'd probably be looking at Blip as the winner here, but inside the battle box, as we know, damage is key, damage is everything, and Huge has been doing a lot of damage this year. In fact, it has been incredibly impressive all around so far. Team is certainly back to their 2018 winning form with Fusion and Starchild still on the schedule, as meanwhile Blip is in panic mode now at 0-2, and it may have to cannibalize its own teammate and defending BattleBots champion Tantrum for a shot to just stay in top 32 contention. Moving on to the episode's second half, it's a meeting between two 1-0 robots which delivered utterly electric fights in round 1. It's Witch Doctor with Busted Nuts Robotics and Team Waiachi with Fusion. And fun fact here, these two squads almost met in the regular season round 4 during the 2018 World Championship. Witch Doctor was scheduled to face Warrior Clan, who at 1-2 would end up pulling out of the regular season so Team Waiachi could focus on Son of Waiachi. That night, Witch Doctor would instead face Overhaul, but now we finally get to see the Witch and Waiachi showdown, as both Witch Doctor and Fusion came out looking nearly exactly like they did for round 1, with the only big change being that Witch Doctor would run its anti-horizontal spinner plow for this fight instead. The plan behind this was for Mike Galately to break the horizontal spinner weapon of Fusion ASAP, which seemed to be the source of Fusion's past issues with internal fires. On Fusion's side, Reese Ewart intended to start with a vertical spinner, once again only using that horizontal spinner when Witch Doctor was prone. We saw that strategy enacted during the emulsifier fight. It worked out pretty well there. We'll see how it goes. But discussing the fight itself here, holy shit. I mean, it was another banger for Fusion, who started off the fight dominant, delivering 5 unanswered vertical spinner strikes to the Doctor in the opening 30 seconds of the match, dominating most of the opening minute, but Witch Doctor did have some offense of its own during this window as well, including one strike that would break Fusion's vertical spinner right as the second minute of the fight would begin. From here, it was all tri-bar horizontal spinner from Fusion, which ended up picking up right where that vertical spinner left off by ripping a wheel clean off of Witch Doctor, and shortly after, an entire half of that anti-horizontal spinner plow, which was supposed to be the one breaking Fusion's weapon, looks like the roles were reversed there. Witch Doctor's weapon would follow quickly after, also breaking down, but Witch Doctor would not break down here. In fact, Witch Doctor's ridiculous aggression in the fight's final minute, bullying Fusion and even flipping the double weapon robot over at one point, probably ended up winning the Voodoo Queen this fight. That's right, this barn burner would go the full 3 minutes and ended up being our first split decision of the season, as Witch Doctor would take the W here. So we finally saw our first split decision of the year, but we still have yet to see our first judge's decision appeal. Fortunately, Reese Ewart seemed to respect the judge's call and even admitted that he was actually happy for once about Fusion's performance. And speaking of Fusion, holy shit, this robot has gone from being one of the sport's most inconsistent machines to being arguably the best bout machine of this entire season so far, as its meetings with Emulsifier and Witch Doctor are far beyond the two best fights we've seen this entire season. Witch Doctor got tested more than anyone ever expected, but it now sits at 2-0 with the neighboring robot Gruff and rival opponent Minotaur still in its lineup. Meanwhile, Fusion at an incredibly impressive 1-on-1 finally had a fight with no fire. Super exciting, but can it keep that cold streak up against the second half opponents of Huge and Rotator? Only time will tell, but given how Fusion has done so far this year, win or loss, I am absolutely stoked for those two fights. Let's get them ASAP. We now move on to our first mid-season all-alternate battle. I've been incredibly excited about covering these and getting the chance to talk about the likes of Terratops, Dragon King, Double Tap, Slammo, among others, as this alternate battle was reportedly originally supposed to be Dumba versus Rusty, but like we reported on our recent TCC news video, one you can check out right here, we'll have the link up there, Rusty was having some serious part supplier issues and was not ready to enter the arena just yet. Bad news for Dumba, as it was already set up and ready to fight a hammer-based opponent when the news was broken to them that instead they would be facing Ostrich Air's brand new robot Double Tap. Double Tap was supposed to be in World Championship 7, but much like Doom, safety issues and team inexperience had forced the crew to pull out and give Shredded Bro its spot in the regular Season 50. But hey, at least we still get to see this crazy spinner sooner rather than later here, as these two robots entered the tunnel with Dumba, like I mentioned, rocking the chainsaw and extra top armor, thinking that their opponent was going to be Rusty, while Double Tap was armed with their lightest weapon, the Macerator, plus their blockier, more machine-esque aluminum frame. Ostrich Air was very confident in this fight, and reasonably so, as the team had set Double Tap's weapon at the perfect height for Dumba, while Team Dumba and Bryce Farrell, they were simply there just to have some fun. Like they were saying, chainsaws are fun, crazy robot designs are fun, undercutters are fun. Let's just go out there and have some fun with this googly-eyed machine. And to start this brisk fight, both Double Tap and Dumba surprised me with how quickly both of their weapons had spun up to full spinning speed. Less than 3 seconds, I would say, but thanks to Double Tap's reach, it would be the only one able to actually do anything during this fight, with its first strike of the battle completely dislodging Dumba's top panel, and both of those googly eyes on Dumba also getting ripped off in the process. So, now completely blinded, Dumba did try lifting its not turned on chainsaw up like an angry stag beetle, but unfortunately the damage was done. Smoke bellowed out of Dumba shortly after strike number 1, and strike number 2 would seal the deal here, with this second impact obliterating the robot that could, leaving guts hanging out of both the tops inside the Dumba, as it would be a 55-second knockout win here for Double Tap, as Double Tap lives up to its name very well here. 2 strikes and 1 knockout in under a minute, but it did seem that Double Tap had a bit of recoil drive issue following that initial strike to Dumba. Maybe something to look out for in future fights, but Double Tap can at least say it started off its career undefeated at 1-0 here. But as for Dumba, it was a blast to finally see inside the arena, and I hope the team can finally get that Rusty matchup they've been begging for next. According to the Dumba social media page, the Battlebots team are trying to make that happen as an apology for giving them Double Tap. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens here for the perky little floor cleaner Dumba. Hopefully Rusty can get their stuff figured out and we can get that battle of the underdogs here later on in the year. But now from fun things, we get to some drama here as we go on to this main event, and oh boy, there's a lot of stuff I never thought we'd be discussing here on screen at the Combot Collective. So to keep this situation I'm sure you're all aware of short, Mad Catter's driver, Calvin Eba's Beetleweight Lynx, is arguably the greatest 3-pound robot in the world right now. It is a 2-time NHRL annual defending champion, and it is due to appear at RoboGames as the championship favorite in April. It's been discussed by both fans and even Battlebots themselves on social media within the last year that Riptide is nothing more than a 1-to-1 ripoff of Lynx built for the heavyweight class. And now there's plenty of reasons in my opinion to dislike Team Break 32, reasons we'll talk about here in a moment, but I do feel like this discussion point is a little bit iffy. At the end of the day, both Lynx and Riptide are simply just 4-wheel drive vertical spinners with egg beaters, and Ethan Kurtz even had an NHRL 3-pounder of his own called Rival, which was similarly built to Lynx. Maybe we should get mad at that robot instead. And I mean, ultimately, nobody owns the idea of a 4-wheel drive egg beater robot. I mean, we really could say that Riptide ripped off Robot Wars' Hobgoblin if you want to go that far. But that's the silly drama bullshit aside. This exciting main event would see Riptide show up completely unchanged from its dominant round 1 it had against Glitch, while Mad Catter would make quite a few moves here, ditching their bigger Jolt blade for the 35-pound Jumbo Fry disc, and they would also replace their pontoon wedges for their sword and shield wedge setup, which we last saw during the Mad Catter vs. Black Dragon meeting in the round 32 2021. Which, in my opinion, was a very questionable choice. I feel like that sword and shield setup got kind of in their way during that fight. but we're just going to have to see how it does here. Ultimately, the fight would be short, albeit not as short as our Battle of the Alternates, but still very much a quick fight here, as both robots would go back and forth with a pair of strikes amidst the opening 15 seconds. But once Riptide had the short feeder wedge on Mad Catter ripped off during strike number 3 here, the pace of the fight was essentially decided, quite frankly. It's all about the ground game with these vertical spinner battles, and without a wedge, Mad Catter was prone to big-time offense from Riptide, who eventually had Mad Catter smoking and down a wheel before managing the first out of the arena of the entire season, delivering a perfect finesse strike to Mad Catter, throwing it right behind the arena bumper. An incredibly impressive knockout here in 1 minute and 1 second, as Riptide would celebrate by destroying Mad Catter's mini-bot Crazy Cat after Mad Catter was already eliminated. That draw the ire of some fans as well, but mini-bots are sacrificial lambs at the end of the day. But shit, dude, this is a whole can of worms here. I mean, Riptide looked excellent. Mad Catter showed great durability, and you know, we can talk all about this Lynx and Riptide drama all we want, but for me, the real issue comes from the Riptide team, Break 32 themselves. The way Ethan Kurtz carries himself during these interviews it's just uncomfortable, it's awkward, and from what I've heard from a lot of sources, this stuff is apparently going to be getting a lot worse before it gets better. So that's fun to hear. I mean, it's no 2021 drama, but still, ugh. I seriously want to like Riptide. It is spectacular. It's amazing. I mean, that Defender fight last year was stunning. It's unironically one of the best 250-pound machines on the planet right now. But the people behind it, most notably Ethan Kurtz and his father, just have turned me off in their whole entire program, which really isn't fair to the rest of Roboteers, but that's just how it is with these guys. I mean, massive kudos to Team Mad Catter for great sportsmanship. I know that if I was in the place of Martin Basin, I would have not handled some dork trying to put their hand in front of my mouth like that nearly as well. I would have not been happy. But now let's move forward. Mad Catter challenges Big Dylan Lockjaw for the second half of the season. I'm really excited about that Western Allied Civil War in round 3. And meanwhile, Riptide has Captain Shredderator and Black Dragon due up. We can only pray that Captain Shredderator can maybe teach these guys a little bit of a lesson, but I do think the real one to look out for here is his round 4 meeting versus Black Dragon. That one could very much be a main event. But there we go. 7 fights up, 7 fights down. Double Tap has impressed. Lockjaw maybe should use attachments that it's known for using. Sawblaze looked utterly fantastic. Witch Doctor and Fusion both absolutely delivered in their round 2 matchup here. The Midway Major as well, super exciting. I'm glad Blip did manage a few flips on Huge, even though Huge ended up dominating the fight. That strike right to Blip's flipper hinge at the minute mark was absolutely brutal. I was seriously hoping we'd see Huge shove Blip into the screws housebot style, but unfortunately that robot was just too big and plotting. Really unfortunate there. The main event was a very exciting fight. I am glad to see an out of the arena this year. I know some people are going to be in the comments, well, actually, Sterling, it was actually not out of the arena. It was just behind the screws. Or bumper, whatever it was. I'm calling it out of the arena. Let me have what I want. We have no out of the arenas anymore. I absolutely hate it. Trey Roski has got his damn way, and it's a bit of a bummer, but I digress. Still probably the best episode so far. I feel like episode 4 was lacking. It was certainly one of those episodes of all time. But from an absolute barn burner like Fusion versus Witch Doctor, Minotaur versus FreeShipping, and another excellent fight. Blip versus Huge, a main event level meeting, and the true main event being super spicy. Definitely a very solid episode. Was also super excited to finally get to see Dumba and Double Tap in action. Like I said, I really was worried that we weren't going to see these guys fight until, the summer. You know, that's what went down during Battlebots Champions. It felt like forever before we could finally see guys like Double Jeopardy and Big Dill. Fortunately, not the case here, but let's go ahead and get you guys out of here. Super excited about next week's main event, Tantrum versus Hydra 2. If Tantrum wants to have a shot at making the playoffs, it seems reasonable wants to get both of those robots into the playoffs. Tantrum needs to win this fight against Hydra. Hydra can afford a loss, but we'll talk about that more next week. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown, aka Sterling TXTG. You can find me on Instagram at that tag. But as for the Combot Collective, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Those links are in the description below. And join our Discord server. All of our video news, giveaway news, upload news, robot combat news, it all gets posted there first. We're trying to make that Discord server more and more active each day. It's still a tad small, but we do have some Roboteers like Tony D'Ambrosio, like Team ULL in the UK, like Seppi Tester, Ethan Shipley from Team Broken Gears Robotics. They all chat about their robots there among some other Roboteers. So definitely be sure to check out our Discord server. And of course, right here on YouTube. I hope you liked the video. Please give us a like, comment, and a subscription on this one. Ring that bell icon, give us some constructive criticism, and give us your thoughts on this exciting 5th episode of the Battlebots regular season. We are now halfway through regular season round 2 and almost halfway through the regular season as a whole. So a lot more exciting stuff to talk about. Hopefully I can finally do one of these live streams and make some predictions. I know predictions have been absent from the page this year, which I do hate, but I'm only one guy. I can only cover so much here, but I digress. Thank you guys so much for watching another TCC Rundown episode, and we will see you guys next week for more.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.